Welcome back to the Observable Unknown. You are not overwhelmed by accident. You are living inside a condition that has been studied, named, and refined long before it reached you. Walter Lippmann observed something a century ago that has not lost its edge. You don't respond to reality in its full complexity. You respond to a simplified internal picture of experienced reality, a constructed environment, a pseudo-environment. And whoever shapes that environment shapes your perception of threat, of urgency, of what deserves your attention. Harold Lasswell treated propaganda not as deception, but as method, something measurable, repeatable, and scalable. Edward Bernays extended it even further, not forcing belief, but engineering consent. But belief was never the final objective. Jacques Ellul understood the shift. Propaganda would no longer operate as isolated messages. It would become an environment, continuous, ambient, and unavoidable. The aim is not always to convince you of something, it is to keep you immersed, reactive, and unable to step outside the stream long enough to evaluate it. Robert Proctor introduced a more unsettling frame. Ignorance is not merely the absence of knowledge, it can be manufactured through doubt, distraction, overload, contradiction. When everything is contested, nothing stabilizes. Contemporary analysis, particularly from the RAND Corporation, an American nonprofit global policy think tank, research institute, and public sector consulting firm, and specifically the work of Christopher Paul and Miriam Matthews, describes what is now called the firehose of falsehood. High-volume messaging, rapid delivery, multiple channels, no obligation to coherence. Contradiction is not a failure. It is a tactic, because the goal is not persuasion, it is exhaustion. Your nervous system was not designed for continuous informational assault. Research now shows perceived information overload is linked to depressive symptoms. Constant exposure to negative content reinforces anxiety loops. Compulsive checking behaviors emerge under high uncertainty. Work by Johannes Matthes and colleagues, along with research on doom scrolling and threat exposure, points in the same direction. The problem is not only what you are seeing, it is how much and how often. Clinical literature, including the systematic review by Marco Tacuta, Valentina Tacuta, and colleagues, describes a state that sits adjacent to depression. It is called demoralization, and it is marked by helplessness, loss of meaning, loss of connection, and the inability to cope. You still have enough energy to feel the problem, but not enough clarity to resolve it. At this point, the system does not need to push. You participate, you scroll, you refresh, you return, not always for knowledge, often for confirmation of your unease. In my own work, particularly in a simplified neuroscience of intuition, I examine how the brain filters reality. Before conscious awareness ever arrives, what you experience as overload has already been selected and curated. It's been weighted before you encounter it. And in my volume, The 12 Decision Bodies, I extend this further. You do not choose from all available options. You choose from what was allowed, from what was permitted to appear. In my work, The Cost of the Move, I argue that internal direction is never neutral. Every orientation extracts something, and under conditions of saturation, the cost is not only emotional, it is structural. You begin to lose the ability to hold a line. This is the outcome, not belief in falsehood, but fatigue toward truth. What is the point of sorting, weighing, deciding, if nothing ever resolves? The flood you are experiencing will not stop. It was never designed to. The question is not whether you can silence it or slow it. The question is whether you can remain within it without surrendering your ability to decide what matters. Because in the end, what you allow to organize your attention will organize your world. Hold the line, even if you must redraw it every day. If this interlude has stirred some reflection in you, I urge you to write to me directly at theobservableunknown@gmail.com or text me at 336-675-5836. If you are interested in my personal works that were mentioned in this interlude, you can find them at crowscupboard.com or drjuancarlosrey.com. And as always, I thank you for doing your very best to hold the line for as long as you possibly can.